As insert year beyond 2020, the VTuber bubble is huge, the market is beyond saturation, and carving out a niche is becoming more and more difficult every day. As they say with all artistic things, and they's me, everything has already been done. But has it all been done the way that you can do it? Absolutely not. Hiya, I'm Iiji, and I'm a professional 3D modeler and illustrator, among other things, and I have a formula for you on how you can carve out a spot for yourself in the VTuber world through some market research and concept planning. Now, you might be wondering what my credentials are. I'm not especially big VTuber by any means, but that doesn't mean I don't know how to play the game. I'm just a hobbyist with a full-time job who would rather not. What I am, however, is an MFA student who has figured out how to find a place in an even older, what I would probably argue is a more saturated market, the art world. And what I've learned from that experience absolutely carries over into VTubing. So let's chat. The first step in figuring out how to stand out is figuring out who you are. I don't mean this in some crazy deep way or your Myers-Briggs personality, but instead in terms of what aspects make up who you are as a person and what you bring to the table. What interests and skills do you have that define you as a person in some way? For most VTubers right now, their interests and skills can be summarized as gaming and watching anime, maybe with some musical or artistic skills thrown in. Now, I'm sure we'd all love to base our career on those things, I certainly would. But it's already being done, and it's being done by thousands. Maybe I'm overestimating, but it's being done. If we take it back to the beginning, the reason video game live streaming took off with VTubers is because there's a market overlap between anime lovers and gamers, which probably comes as no surprise to you. Early HoloLive and Niji-Sanji talents combined anime character tropes with streaming to convert an audience of anime watchers into their viewer base. And that viewer base still prevails today. Other market overlaps, like those between idol culture and anime, digital art and anime, and others, also thrive in VTubing for this exact reason. If you aren't a skilled gamer, artist, or musician, don't fret. There is a much more to content creation than just those categories. Recently, we've been seeing some other new overlaps popping up that may be more your vibe. When Onigiri entered the scene in 2021, she brought the concept of combining cooking shows with VTuber activities to popularity. It's no surprise then when she skyrocketed, as there were a plethora of IRL YouTube channels at the time making anime-related cooking content, but not much in the ways of VTubers doing the same. She wasn't the first to do it necessarily, but she did refine it and introduce some new ideas. She also helped to encourage the idea of mixed reality, combining aspects of digital VTuber persona with live filmed portions. And since then, cooking streams have found a place in many a VTuber's schedule, for good reason. There have also been growing overlaps between game dev content and computer science content with VTubing now too. My point here is what skills and interests do you have that could share and overlap with the VTubing market? What content is being made with great success on YouTube or Twitch by non-VTubers that is yet to take off in the VTuber sphere? Now, I can't answer those questions for you because I don't know you. I don't know what you bring to the table. But here are just a couple of loose examples of what I'm talking about. Do you remember when Taxhaven 3000 went viral on Twitter because through interaction with a pink-haired anime girl, it helped you file your federal tax returns? That could be you, a cute VTuber financial advisor, especially if you do something similar in real life. There definitely is interest. Education also sells on YouTube, and tutorials are the king of engagement, second only to clickbait. Is there a topic that you're an expert in and could teach to others? Where are my art historian VTubers? My chemistry professor VTubers? Botanist VTubers teaching us to identify plants? Handyman VTubers with workshop hacks? Mechanic VTubers to tell me why my car is making that weird noise and how to fix it? Get the gist? And with mixed reality options such as color keying like Onigiri does, or using an app like Virtual Face to put your 3D VTuber head onto your real body, the options for VTuber content have really opened up. I want you to put some real thought into this and figure out an angle for content that the VTuber sphere is lacking. Now, it's time to talk a little bit more about your concept as a VTuber. Yam Albat has a wonderful video on VTuber concepts that I highly suggest you check out, and I have it linked below. Plus, her VTuber concept planning worksheet is a must-have when you're in this stage. She breaks down VTuber concepts in a really clever way that adds some much-needed complexity. As a VTuber, your concept is a several-word description that summarizes what a viewer can expect from you. Yam's formula for this is as follows: personality trait plus profession or aesthetic plus species. Examples of this formula can include buff, goofball, orange furry, funky green cave woman, TV magical girl idol, and I'm sure that if you think of just about any popular VTuber, you can figure out how do they fill the formula. Yam also has a lot of great examples in her video. I would like to take her idea and expand upon it a little bit further. Remember that skill or interest we just talked about in the last section? Yeah, it's gonna come back into play here. So my formula for a VTuber concept would be personality trait plus aesthetic plus motif plus species plus that skill or interest. I know that's a bit more terms, but stick with me here. And I'm going to use Onigiri as an example again, not because I think she is like the holy grail, the end-all be-all of perfect VTubers, but she is pretty dang good, and she does make a good example of this, and she's successful for it. Personality trait is straightforward enough. One word to describe you or the character you'll be playing. Yuri is usually summarized as cozy, and although her personality expands far beyond this, it still gives a baseline expectation of her content. Aesthetic is the general outward vibe based on appearance. This is where your core descriptors like cottagecore and cyberpunk would come in. Yuri's aesthetic draws from elements of JRPG and historic Chinese fashion. To my untrained fashion eye, I'm sure somebody's a more detailed explanation of it or a more concise way of saying it. A motif is a pattern or element that has symbolic significance and is often made important through repetition. Onigiri's is, well, onigiri, the food. The repetition coming from her being an oni, and her name is a part of this, but can you spot the influence of the food in her visual design too? Spoiler, the placement of the white and black on her top is reminiscent of what an onigiri looks like. Although many of us might not immediately make that connection, it still strengthens her concept and overall design. Species is only relevant if you are something other than human, a cat, dog, a mushroom, or in Giri's case, an oni. And last is that skill we already discussed, which Giri's is cooking. Now, I did remove the profession aspect from Yam's formula, but that's because the skill or interest fills a similar role and will be more important to who you are as a character. Having a VTuber profession as a mail carrier is cool, but if you're just playing games and you aren't providing an inside scoop on the life of mail carrier, or streaming your roots, or doing something else related to it, the profession isn't really serving you in your content as well as it could and should be, right? The aesthetic and motif items are a little more on the visual design end of VTuber creation than the concept end, but they will be vital to have figured out for you once you move on to your character's visuals. So, with all of that, we end up with a cozy, Chinese, or JRPG fashion-inspired onigiri oni chef, who, as it turns out, is quite successful for it. I would challenge you to find some more examples of this, where the skill or interest is something other than artist, musician, or gamer. Right now, I don't think there's actually a ton of them, but this is the point. Gotta break that status quo. Adapt, improvise, overcome. If you'd like some more inspiration or just some silly results, I made a random generator a couple months ago for a character design challenge that spits these kind of concepts out. Now that you know who you are, it's time to relate that to what you look like. This includes your character design and branding, which should go hand in hand. Now, there is a lot to design and branding and every individual aspect that makes up these categories, like your name, your lore, logo, and more. And they do deserve their own dedicated videos, but I'm going to try and give a very quick overview. You'll just have to come back for part 2 for an in-depth dive on that stuff though. Here's the gist. You're gonna want a cohesive color palette across your brand and character, your visual motif and aesthetic to be concise and clear, your character art style to mesh well with the strengths of 2D or 3D modeling, good silhouette, and to highlight expressiveness in the face through making it a focal point. These are just the basics. And it might sound like a let's juggle, and I won't lie, it is. But at the end of the day, good VTuber design is just another branch of good character design. I would suggest that if you are not a character designer yourself, and this feels like a lot to tackle or intimidating, that you reach out to somebody who is and pitch them your concept. There are a lot of extremely skilled character designers in the VTuber sphere who I'm sure, for a little bit of cash incentive, would be happy to help you figure it out. I'm currently working on a more in-depth video about these aspects from a character design standpoint, but for the sake of this video, we're just going to discuss one thing that, when added on top of all those items I just listed, can help take the design an extra mile and add a level of uniqueness in some cases. This is art style. Corporate VTubers, they just about all have that classic anime style, but that's not the end-all be-all, especially not for indie VTubers. What do Cabal, Pumpkin Potion, and Kimrai have in common? They are, or were, all VTubers who achieve success, at least in part, I would argue, due to their unique art style. And this is not to downplay their hard work or great personalities at all, but instead to say that their style is helping them. They stand out visually among VTubers If I stuck them in a huge collage, you'd be able to pick them out pretty easily, I promise. And that works to their benefit. While this may be counter to fitting in visually with collab partners or the overall scene, I would urge you that breaking the status quo, while challenging, can be very rewarding. Just watch High School Musical if you don't believe me. You can, by all means, have an anime-style character. I do. And there's a reason there's so many of them. It just looks nice. But don't limit yourself to this, especially if there's another style you're interested in. Now, you, by all means, do not have to take any of this advice or all of it, but at the end of the day, it feels extremely important to consider if you're looking to break into the VTubing scene and eventually turn VTubing into a full-time career. I hope this discussion got some wheels turning in your head, and I wish you luck on your VTuber journey. See you soon for some more VTuber design-oriented tips, and farewell for now.